Have you ever been editing a wedding film when your computer just seems like it can't keep up? It's stuttering and it's freezing and you're about ready to lose your mind. Well, guess what? So have I, and today I'm going to show you how to fix that problem. Hey guys, Heather here. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time here, I enjoy doing videos about how you can edit your wedding films faster. If that's something that you're interested in, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. So without further ado, I am going to jump right into the topic. And what is the topic? It's a big one today. Editing with proxies. I have a little bit of confession to make. I haven't really been editing with proxies until recently because I was honestly a little confused by proxies. I didn't understand how they worked. I didn't understand why I needed them. I didn't understand where the files went, how the files interacted with the software. Well, I finally decided I've had enough of the stuttering and the freezing, and I need more speed. So I jumped on the proxy wagon, and wow, can I tell you, it has made a huge difference. So if you're like me and you've been a little afraid of editing with proxies, today I'm going to teach you all about what proxies are, why you should be using them, and how you could start using them. So what exactly is proxy media? Proxy media is a duplication of the original media at a lower resolution and a much smaller data rate. This makes your computer a lot easier to crunch, and it makes it a lot easier for your software programs to play back your media. So now that we know exactly what proxy media is, when should you be using proxy media? You should be using proxy media definitely for sure if you're doing any type of multicam work, using footage 4K resolution or larger, or if you're using a ton of effects or color grading. I would also suggest using proxy media if you feel like your computer is just having a hard time keeping up with your editing. This could mean that you just have a slower computer in general. I am going to be talking a little bit about using proxy media in Final Cut Pro and in Adobe Premiere. But first, let me show you an example of when using proxies is a good idea. Let's jump into Final Cut Pro. Here we are in Final Cut Pro, and I'm playing a multicam of a wedding ceremony, and you'll start to notice that while it is playing back, it will start to stutter and slow down. Now in this case, the stutter isn't too terrible, but this footage also is not in 4K. If it was in 4K, trust me, my computer would have a really hard time processing this. So what's the solution? Editing with proxies. First, let's go into Final Cut Pro and let me show you how you import files so that they become proxies. Also, if you work on Premiere, stick around. Don't worry, I'm not going to forget about you. We're going to jump over to Premiere next, and I'll show you exactly how to do what I'm doing in Final Cut in Premiere. So here we are in Final Cut, and we want to import some files. So we're going to import media. Over here, you're going to notice that underneath transcoding, it says create optimized media and create proxy media. Now, optimized media is taking the footage and transcoding it into ProRes footage, which Final Cut Pro prefers. But guess what? Transcoding your media into proxy media actually transcodes it into ProRes too, but it transcodes it into a much lower resolution. So for me personally, I don't check both of them. I just check the create proxy media, and this helps speeds up the process a lot. One thing I want to say, whether you're in Final Cut Pro or you're in Premiere, when you're creating proxies, it's going to take time. So what I highly recommend is importing all your footage into whatever program you're using the night before so that you're not sitting around waiting for the proxy files to be created. So once we're ready, we're going to check create proxy media. Me personally, I leave all files in place, and then you're going to import selected. Now when you import selected, it's going to bring all that media in whatever the original file type that it is, but it's also going to start transcoding it into proxy media. Up here, you're going to see exactly it doing that. So it has all these files and it's getting ready to transcode them. So like I said, this is something that you want to do the night before and walk away and come back and do it the next day. This is going to speed up your editing tremendously, but it does take a little time in the beginning. All right, now let's hop on over to Premiere. Here we are in Premiere and we're going to import our media. So we're going to go to Import. We're going to find that same footage and then we're going to hit Import. It's going to import all the files in the original format that they're in. And then once the media is in here, what I like to do is I like to highlight the media that I want transcoded, right click, go down here, it just says Proxies. Now it says Create Proxies, that's the one that we're actually going to use today. But these other two are really great to know about too. Attach proxies mean you've already transcoded the proxies and you just want to attach the proxies to the original media. Or if you've imported the proxies and you want to reconnect the full resolution media. So we're going to create proxies. It's going to pop up this box right here and you're going to have the option to change the format. Now for me personally, I use the H.264 codec, but you can also use QuickTime. And to change the preset or the resolution. Right here you could choose where you want those proxy files to go. You could have the proxy files go right next to the original media, or you can choose a folder of your liking. So if you want to create a file or a folder just for proxies, you could do that and have all your proxy files go there. I'm just going to keep it next to the original media. Then you're going to hit OK, and what Premiere is going to do is it's going to kick all that footage over to Encoder, and I already have Encoder going on another project. What I love about Encoder is that it's going to bump it all over here, it's going to have everything set up ready to go, and then it's automatically going to play and it's going to start transcoding those files for you. You don't have to worry about doing it at all. Another program is doing that for you. You can easily go in and start editing something else in Premiere. Same with Final Cut Pro, you could go in and start editing as well, but it will be working harder than say Premiere would be working since another program is actually doing the transcoding. Once you have actually imported all your footage and it has been processed and converted and transcoded into proxy files, the next thing we need to do is know how to actually use those proxy files. So in Final Cut Pro, the way that we do that is we go up to the view, and this is how we change from using original media or optimized media to using proxy files, is we go right down here and we check the proxy box. So when you do that, it's going to make it so that all the files that you're currently editing with, it's going to change them into proxy files. And if you see any that pop up like this that are red, what that means is they are currently being processed and transcoded. So hang tight to get those files. So don't be alarmed when you go to do that, you switch over and you start to see red files. Just make sure that everything is done. If it's not done, which in this case everything is not done transcoding, you're going to see a red file like this. So once you are done editing with your proxy files, then the last thing that we really need to talk about is when you go to export. When you go to export, it's going to give you a warning. It's going to say, hey, you're using proxy files. Do you want to export those proxy files? This is good if you want to do maybe a lower resolution as a rough draft to send to someone else to look over to make sure that everything is okay. But most of the time what you want to do is you want to hit cancel. You want to go back to view. You want to change everything back to the original media and then come back and export your files. In Premiere, once all of your files have been transcoded, the only thing that you really need to do to switch over to your proxies is to come up here and add it to your toolbox, which in my case I've already added it to my toolbox, but just so that you know how to add it to your toolbox, you go hit the plus sign and then you find it within these buttons, which is right here, and then you just drag it down and add it to your toolbox. And then with the click of a button, you're editing with proxies. So that is how you import proxy media both in Final Cut Pro and Adobe. I hope that helps you a lot in knowing how to import and make proxy files for both programs. Now that we talked a little bit about what a proxy is, why you should be using it, and how to create proxies, I want to know, how many of you are going to start editing with proxies now that you know how to do it? I have one last tip before you go for all you Final Cut Pro editors. Once you are done editing your weddings, I have a little tip for you to keep your library files down. What you could do once you're done editing your weddings and you no longer need your proxy media is to go up here to File, Delete Generated Event Files, and then you can delete all of the files that you've created. Your proxy media, your optimized media, heck, you can even delete your render files. You could delete just the unused render files, or you could delete all of them. This is the last thing that you want to do. You're done, you've created all your final films, it's been sent to the client's approved, and now you just want to take your library and you just want to store it away in case something comes up in the future and you want to just jump back on again and you want to fix everything. This is going to take all those files and delete them so that your library goes back down to a manageable size for storage. So this is the last thing that I highly recommend when you're all done editing your weddings and you can create small libraries. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments about proxies, be sure to leave those down below. And if you haven't been editing with proxies and you now think you're going to give it a try, let me know down in the comments as well. I love to hear y'all's feedback and hear back from y'all. And if this is your first time here, remember to hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and we will see you in the next film.